Tonight on First at 9, Heart to Heart, Sri Lanka executes first successful transplant, 50 years since the procedure was first performed.
First at 9, this is Derana 24/7.
Also making headlines tonight, fighting dengue, a new tax to be imposed to mitigate the spread of dengue. Sufficient rice. President assures to import rice despite losses. And making sports headlines, Sri Lanka's loss. Zimbabwe record historic series win over the Lions. In international headlines, Trump's Russia link. Trump's son met with Russian lawyers after being promised damaging information on Clinton. Live across Sri Lanka, this is Derana 24/7. Good evening, everyone. I'm Mahesh Johnny. Tonight we begin with the latest on the dengue situation. As the dengue epidemic continues to spread, the Western Provincial Council today announced a tax of 2% on abandoned lands within the province in order to address the severity of the issue. According to the latest report, 230 lives have been claimed from across the island since January this year.
According to the Epidemiology Unit of the Ministry of Health, over 80,700 suspected dengue cases have been reported from across the island so far this year. Approximately 43% of these cases were reported from the Western Province, out of which 20% were from Colombo district. Meanwhile, addressing media today, Chief Minister of the Western Province, Isuradeva Priya, stated that the Western Provincial Council reached a decision to impose tax on abandoned lands in the province in order to tackle the issue. He added that although the relevant act was passed in the past, it was not implemented until today.
The Provincial Council has the authority to charge tax of 2% on abandoned land which falls within the jurisdictions of the Western Province. The tax of 2% will be calculated against the current market value of land. In the case landowners refuse to pay the tax, the Council has the authority to acquire the land. We will also impose taxes on land which are neglected and become a garbage dumping site, as well as land which pose risk of breeding dengue mosquitoes and insects.
Speaking to Derana, Director General of the National Hospital, Dr. Anil Singh, has said that due to the severity of the spread of dengue, the National Hospital in Colombo converted ward number 33 for the treatment of dengue patients starting today.
Initially, we had 764 beds in the National Hospital of Sri Lanka in internal medical units where the dengue patients get admitted to. And then we have increased twice the bed strength. So therefore the bed strength came to 864, and with this new dengue specific ward that today we commission, the bed strength for dengue patients would go beyond 900. We have been able to achieve time limit of 5 to 10 minutes for issuing of full blood count, and this is for the first time in Sri Lanka.
Meanwhile, a group of MPs representing the joint opposition visited the Colombo South Teaching Hospital to look into the well-being of dengue patients there.
Many of those who have been admitted to the hospital have to share a bed with 2 or 3 other patients. The government needs to implement a proper mechanism to address this, as it is in a critical state. If necessary, they may need to have the assistance of triforces and increase the number of equipment to treat patients. Sri Lanka's first heart transplant surgery was successfully performed at the Kandy General Hospital on Friday, marking a breakthrough in Sri Lanka's medical history. The heart of a 24-year-old donor was transplanted to a 34-year-old woman whose heart was only functioning 12%. Now, prior to rolling this package, we want to advise you that these visuals may contain disturbing images. Therefore, viewers' discretion is advised.
The first ever human heart transplant was performed in 1976 by a South African surgeon, Dr. Christian Bernard, in Cape Town. Dr. Bernard's surgical team removed the heart of a 25-year-old woman whose brain died following a car accident and placed it in the chest of a 55-year-old man. This extraordinary event pushed the boundaries of science into the dawn of a new medical era. 50 years later, Sri Lanka successfully concluded its first heart transplant at the Kandy General Hospital together with the expertise of many cardiothoracics. A team of 15 specialists from Valisara Chest Hospital, the Lady Ridgeway Hospital, Sirimavo Bandarnayaka Specialized Children Hospital in Peradeniya, and Kurunagala Teaching Hospital and the Anuradhapura Teaching Hospital joined in the surgery.
We have many patients in the cardiology unit whose hearts are dysfunctional. We can only treat them by a way of transplant. Recently, a young boy who was under treatment in our hospital was confirmed brain dead by the doctors. The doctor in charge requests the boy's parents to donate his organs for the transplant. We have now successfully transplanted the heart. We also transplanted his kidneys. The challenge now is to take care of the patient.
IG Kumara, a 24-year-old boy whose brain died after a fatal accident in Kandy recently, is the donor of the heart. Pushpa Kumari, a mother of one and a resident of Anuradhapura, was the recipient of the heart. Only 12% of her heart has been functioning when the surgery was performed. Following a 6-hour surgery, Kumari is currently being treated at the intensive care unit of the Kandy General Hospital.
President Maithripala Sirisena assures the government will interfere to import rice and make sufficient stocks available in the market if prices increase further. Speaking at an event in Polonnaruwa today, the president assured rice stocks at concessionary rates regardless of losses to the government.
President Maithripala Sirisena visited the Janadipati Model Primary School built in Palugastamana in Polonnaruwa with the students.
I read a newspaper article which describes that authorities do not react to the escalation of prices of rice. We care about this situation. The North Central, Eastern and Northern provinces face drought during 2 harvest seasons, and that is the reason for the escalation of prices. During my visit in Galgamu, I witnessed that they have been facing a drought for 3 harvest seasons. On Friday, I sent special representatives to 4 countries in order to select suitable variety of rice for imports. Within the course of the month, we will have rice imports from 4 countries. A few days ago, I contacted the Prime Minister of Thailand via telephone and requested for 200,000 metric tons of rice, for which he agreed. I decided to import rice if local market prices increase further and provide import rice at concessionary rates for the innocent people, even if government has to bear losses. Professor Carlo Fonseca urged officials of the Government Medical Officers Association not to launch strike action as scheduled following the end of his term in office as chairman of the Sri Lanka Medical Council. Professor Fonseca informed this when he met representatives of the GMOA in Colombo today.
GMOA officials met Professor Carlo Fonseca this morning at his residence to hand over a special communique regarding the end of his term as chairman of Sri Lanka Medical Council. The GMOA earlier insisted they will launch an indefinite island-wide strike action with the end of his term in the office.
ඒකනම් කරන්න එපාම කියලායි මම දන්න සිංහලෙන් කිව්වේ.
මම හිතන විදිහට පවත්නා තත්ත්වය තුළ මේ සයිටම් ගැටලුව විසඳන්න මොන වගේ ක්‍රියාමාර්ගයක්ද නිශ්චිතව ගත යුතුද?
ලාභාපේක්ෂාවෙන් වෛද්‍ය අධ්‍යාපනය දිය යුතු.
We already accepted that medical education should not be granted to gain profits. Its standard is important. There are 2 roles for Sri Lanka Medical Council. That is, maintaining standards as well as discipline of doctors. When considering the history of SITEM and its contribution for medical education, we all agree that it is not needed. SITEM should be abolished.
සයිටම් අවශ්‍ය කළ යුතුයි.
මහත්මයා මේ තනතුරට පත්වීමට නියමිතයි කියලා අදහස් පළ වෙලා තියෙනවා. එතකොට ඒ සම්බන්ධව ඔබතුමා දකින්නේ මොන වගේ අදහසක්ද? ඔබතුමාගේ පෞද්ගලික මතය මොකක්ද?
කොල්විනෝයි මමයි
Colvin and I have been friends for a long time. We had different views about many issues, but that is not a barrier to our friendship. He does not hold the same stance as I do regarding Saitam.
වෛද්‍ය ආඥාපනත තියෙන්නේ රෝගීන්ගේ අයිතිවාසිකම් රැක ගන්නට.
The medical ordinance is to secure the rights of patients. None of the health ministers violated the medical ordinance so far. Though the health minister has authority to appoint the chairman of SLMC, he has no authority to reduce the 5-year term of a chairman to 6 months. Sri Lanka has become the only country in the world where the registered doctors without permission and supervision of a medical council. Therefore, some people are able to test your internal organs and look into patients' reports without medical council supervision. It is a violation of human rights and the law of the country. As the struggle to abolish the Saitam Medical College continues to develop, the Government Medical Officers Association has joined forces with trade unions as well as political parties to form a people's movement against Saitam. The movement is due to convene a meeting on the 20th of this month to discuss all future actions to push for the abolishment of Saitam. This was announced at a joint media briefing of GMOA and representatives from trade unions, student unions and political parties today.
Today there was a special meeting with all the trade unions who are supporting the Abolish Saitam campaign. So 4 parties, JVP, Vertugami Party and Joint Opposition as well as the Jatik Hela Urumaya. There will be a general meeting on the 20th. So at that meeting we are going to have common decisions regarding what are the next steps we have to take as joint movement against the Saitam.
In the coming days, we will turn the Saitam struggle into the greatest national struggle experienced in the country. We will bring the government to its knees and get Saitam abolished. It is the government's duty to nationalize Saitam. If the government believes that the struggle can be quenched with various devious moves, we are ready to give the message that it cannot be crushed. There is no solution for this issue without the fair consideration of facts pointed out by university students. Oppression of students will not resolve the issue. If the government tries to protect Saitam through conspiracies such as oppressing students, trade unions and anti-Saitam movements, as well as replacing the chairman of the Sri Lanka Medical Council, we like to warn them that they are repeating history, committing a grave mistake. The government has 2 choices: abolish Saitam and remain in place, or keep Saitam in operation and go home. The government should stop playing games.
Meanwhile, the Inter-University Students' Federation filed a complaint at the Human Rights Commission of Sri Lanka today in a bid to seek justice against the assault on university students carried out by police at the Ministry of Health last month. The federation stated that they are being harassed by several parties. Members claim that police, with possession of information on 84 students admitted to hospital subsequent to the incident, have been threatening the students with arrest.
Minister of Justice and Buddha Sasana Vijaydas Rajapaksa assures that the government does not have a necessity of bringing a new constitution that is against the aspirations of the people of the country. He made these remarks participating at a ceremony to lay the foundation stone for the new judicial complex in Gampola. This proposed new constitution has become a puzzle to the people of this country. Front pages of the newspapers report that prominence for Buddhism is no more. Another newspaper says unitary status will go off. But we have not even seen a draft of it. We are the ones in the committee, but we have not prepared any documents so far. We are following a democratic process to prepare the new constitution. In 1972, Mrs. Sirimavo Bandaranaike made a constitution and people told it the Sirimavo Constitution. In 1977, late President J.R. Jayawardena made a constitution and people took it as JR's constitution. But we are not in an effort to make a UNP or SLFP constitution. Please don't make assumptions. This is a transparent process and anyone can bring their suggestions into within a legal framework. We will draft the most suitable constitution for this country. It will consider all necessary policies such as national security, peace and order, reconciliation among the communities. With more details of the proposed constitution to wildlife conservation, here's a look at other stories making news across Sri Lanka. Minister of Special Assignments Dr. Sarath says that there is no need to fear the new constitution. Speaking at a media briefing in Galagidara yesterday, the minister added the formulation of the amended constitution is in its initial phase, with proposals being tabled and no decision is taken as yet. The final draft will be presented to the chief prelates, religious clergy, the public and parliament prior to it being passed. Meanwhile, parliamentarian Shahan Semasinghe says that the unity government must come to an end for the benefit of the country. He made these comments yesterday following statements made by parliamentarian T.B. Ekanayaka's decision to leave the government along with 18 other parliamentarians to join the opposition. Former Defence Secretary Gotabaya Rajapaksa was summoned by the Commission of Inquiry to record a statement today. He was summoned to clarify matters pertaining to the Defence Ministry granting a permission to remove pieces of scrap metal at the Kankasanthuri cement factory. The latest information is that leader of the joint opposition Dinesh Gunawardena has been called to the commission. There is a big difference between conducting investigations and slinging mud in order to take revenge. Some say that the Rajapaksa need to be forgiven. I do not need to be forgiven for no reason. What I require is justice. I have committed no wrong to be forgiven. A staggering 5,600 animals are road-killed along the Colombo-Puttala main road each year by vehicular traffic. This information was made public by the Wildlife Conservation Society during a media briefing today. President of the society, Samantha Indika, added that the report on the findings has been presented to the President, Prime Minister and relevant authorities. On to business news now. Perpetual Treasuries Limited had unilaterally decided the buying and selling rates at the secondary market bonds transaction on behalf of the Employee Provident Fund. This was revealed at the Presidential Commission of Inquiry into the controversial bond issuance after considering few telephone conversations which had taken place between the Perpetual Treasuries and the Pan Asia Banking Corporation.
Commencing the proceedings, the Commission allowed President's Counsel Kalinga Indratissa to represent Arjun Aloysius as his name was mentioned several occasions at the Commission hearings. Deputy General Manager of the Treasury Department at Pan Asia Banking Corporation, Richard Aruna Benedict Das, gave evidence before the Commission for the 5th consecutive day. Attorney General's Department drew the attention of the Commission for several telephone conversations between the Perpetual Treasuries and the Pan Asia Bank. Testifying before the Commission, the witness admitted that the transactions between his bank and the Perpetual Treasuries are unusual. He also told the Commission that whatever the rate offered by the Perpetual Treasuries via the Pan Asia Bank, the EPF was ready to accept the deal.
According to a recent report by the Oxford Business Group on GSP Plus, Sri Lanka is expected a boost in exports, generate renewed private sector investment and increased trade flows. The Oxford Business Group added that if Sri Lanka's export to the EU resume their pre-2010 levels, there could be a surge in growth in the number of key primary and secondary industries. They also forecast an increase in investment in key sectors, particularly textile and agriculture, which account for the bulk of current supplements to the EU, and there could be further increase in spending on export-focused production. The group added that Sri Lanka's economy is likely to enjoy at a minimum half a decade or more of privileged access to the EU market, allowing producers and exporters to further build capacity and cement trade links with Europe. Taking a look at oil prices declined today, adding to heavy losses at the end of last week on the back of high drilling activity in the United States and ample supplies from OPEC and non-OPEC nations. Prices dropped even as OPEC signaled it may widen its production caps to include Nigeria and Libya, whose output has recovered in recent months after being curtailed by years of unrest. Brent crude futures, the international benchmark for oil prices, were at $46.21 per barrel, down 50 cents or around 1% from their last close. U.S. crude futures, the futures at $43.78 per barrel, down 45 cents. The Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries has agreed with some non-OPEC members to curtail production until March 2018, but the move has failed to eliminate a global glut of crude. Let's take you to the stock market now. Colombo equities began the week on a mixed note, with the ASPI closing 20.74 index points higher at 6,758.24, while S&P SL20 index declined 4.62 to close trading at 3,904.32. Market turnover was 428 million rupees, with foreign investors ending as net buyers of 101 million rupees. We have more of the daily market update with Himeshi Fernando from the Colombo Stock Exchange.
Top 5 gainers of the day were SNB Leasing, Non-Voting, Asia Capital, SNB Leasing, Ceylon Investment and Singaputra Finance preference shares, while the top 5 losers were Malan Phipps, Ceylon Printers, Standard Capital, Kothmale Holdings and Horna Plantations.
The dollar climbed to a 2-month high against the yen today as the Bank of Japan's offer last week to buy an unlimited amount of bonds and an unexpected drop in Japanese machinery orders pressured the Japanese currency. Bank of Japan Governor Haruhiko Kuroda today reiterated the central bank's pledge to keep Japanese government's bond yields anchored near zero. The greenback was up 0.19% to 114.1 yen after hitting 114.29 yen, its highest since May 11th earlier in the session. And now here's a look at how the Sri Lankan rupee traded against other currencies during the day today. Welcome back, everyone. Well, don't have any good news to report to our Sri Lankans tonight in the cricketing front, as Zimbabwe completed a remarkable 3-2 series win over Sri Lanka today. The visitors beat the hosts by 3 wickets in the 5th and final one-day international in Hambantota. Accordingly, Sri Lanka loses an one-day international series for Zimbabwe for the first time in the history of cricket.
Having won the toss, Graham Creamer invited Sri Lanka to bat first. Centurion Niroshan Dikwella failed to at least put up a 2-figure score as he was dismissed for 3 by Tendai Chatara. Danushka Gunatilaka, however, played a steady innings by scoring a much-needed half-century, which included 4 boundaries. Sikandar Raza rattled Sri Lanka's top order with 2 wickets, including left-hander Upul Taranga. Giving hopes at the end, Asela Gunaratne's half-century managed to conclude with 203 for 8 on board.
It's a big time for Zimbabwean cricket.
Chasing the target, Zimbabwe's opening pair, Hamilton Mazakadza and Solomon Meyer, made a blistering start, racking up 92 runs for the opening stand. Solomon Meyer was dismissed by Gunaratne for 43. Zimbabwe lost 5 wickets in the middle order for just 38 runs, which brought Sri Lanka back into the contest. Coming into bat, Zimbabwe skipper Graham Creamer held on to the innings along with Raza and managed to guide their side towards victory.
They've done it! They've done it! He didn't get all of it! The Sri Lankans are stunned!
The Hero Cup trophy presented by Mr. Lalinda Brahmana along with Mr. Ravi.
In the one-day series, they've pulled off a few heists.
More cricket, Evan Lewis scored an unbeaten 125 as West Indies handed India a 9-wicket loss at the Sabina Park in Kingston yesterday. Indians were 190 for the loss of 6 wickets in their first T20 international for 2017.
Yeah, definitely anticipated.
After winning the toss, the Windies invited the Indians to bat first. Openers Virat Kohli and Shikhar Dhawan built up an opening partnership of 64 runs. When the duo was in good form, Kohli was caught at mid-on for 39 runs. Dhawan was dismissed by a run-out when new batsman Rishabh Pant refused a single. Coming into play, Dinesh Karthik played some aggressive shots, putting the West Indies bowlers under pressure. Karthik scored a quick 48 off 29 balls. As all the other wickets fell in regular intervals, India was only able to put 190 on the board. Chasing 191, opening batsman Evin Lewis continued to torment Indian bowlers as he smashed his second century, making it the highest individual score in T20 internationals. Lewis hammered 12 sixes and 6 boundaries in his unbeaten 62-ball 125 knock. Marlon Samuel scored 36 off 29 balls. The Windies reached the target in 18.3 overs with only one player being dismissed. Evin Lewis was named man of the match.
Let's move on to international news now. US President Donald Trump's son, Donald Trump Jr., agreed to meet with a Kremlin-linked lawyer during the 2016 election campaign after being promised damaging information about Democratic candidate Hillary Clinton. The New York Times made the revelation, citing a number of White House advisors. A spokesman for President Donald Trump's legal team, however, says the president was not aware of the meeting.
In a statement quoted by the New York Times, US President Donald Trump's son, Donald Trump Jr., acknowledged meeting a Russian lawyer with links to the Kremlin at the Trump Tower shortly after President Trump won the Republican nomination for the 2016 election. President Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner and then campaign chairman Paul Manafort also attended the meeting. Trump Jr. stated that the lawyer claimed to have information that individuals linked to Russia were supporting Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton. He, however, added that no such information was provided. Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump says sanctions imposed against Russia over its annexation of Crimea are to remain. Trump tweeted that it would be premature to consider any relaxation until the Ukrainian and Syrian problems are solved.
Hundreds of thousands of people gathered in Istanbul at the end of a 450-kilometer justice march against the government of Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan. That and more stories on our international wrap.
Large numbers have joined the march since it began in Ankara on the 15th of June. The march was initiated by an opposition leader following the imprisonment of one of his party politicians. President Erdogan accused the marchers of supporting terrorism. Qatar has established a compensation claims committee to pursue damages caused by the blockade imposed by Saudi Arabia and allied countries in the ongoing Gulf crisis. Qatar's Attorney General said the committee will hire overseas law firms to handle the compensation through lawsuits. At least 8 people were killed and more than 36 were injured yesterday after a tourist bus crashed near Peru's capital, Lima. Local media report that the double-decker bus flipped on its side while returning from a tourist site.
Well, other Derana's Katharina Chang is at the Weather Centre with your weather forecast.
A very good evening and welcome to the Weather Centre. We begin the week with wet weather forecast in the western, Sabaragamuwa, central and southern parts of the island in the next 24 hours. Meanwhile, thunderstorms may occur at few places in the Uva province and Batticaloa district. Fairly strong winds of about 50 kilometers per hour can be expected in the western, Sabaragamuwa and southern provinces and Bibile area. It's now time to take a look at the city-by-city forecast.
And that is a part of your world tonight right here on Other Derana 24/7. I'm Mahesh Johnny. Our primetime news bulletin will return tomorrow, first at 9 with Indi Variamuatha. Be sure to join her then. And before we go, we'd like to leave you with visuals from Sri Lanka's stunning coastline, endowed with ceaseless beauty in its revolving waves. Thank you very much for joining us. Good night.
bringing you the news and information 24 hours a day. This is Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Derana 24/7.